Today, I want to share a personal story. Today is 1 year since I experienced one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. I think I'd say the hardest thing I've ever experienced. And that was my ectopic pregnancy. I'm going to try and talk as fluid as I can so that I do not have to do a lot of editing in this video. But I do want to incorporate later on a little bit about my journey of plants and how this has been part of my healing journey from what I've gone through. That being said, I do want to preface it kind of as a disclaimer to start this video that this will not be for everyone. If you are currently pregnant or just terrified of hearing about all of this, there is no need to watch this video. I will not be offended if you leave. Because I understand that this story is heavy, it's emotional, and it will be a lot for some people to hear. But I also understand that this story is real, and I know there's value in sharing it. And this video is important for me in my own healing. I really want to be able to share and voice what I've gone through. And my hope is that if any of you out there watching this video have experienced ectopic pregnancy or pregnancy loss, that you will feel like you are not alone by listening to someone else's story. I know after I had my loss, I did spend some time listening to other stories on YouTube because it just was validating to hear someone else going through what I've gone through. Not that their story's exactly the same, because every miscarriage and every loss is a little bit different. Every story is different. Everyone's experience is unique, and that's okay. But I think there's so much purpose in sharing and connecting with those who have gone through this. So that is my purpose of making this video. I also value having a personal touch on my channel, and I haven't really shared a lot of my personal stories on here, but this one's very important to me. So my story actually starts a couple months before my ectopic pregnancy. It started with my first pregnancy loss. I had a miscarriage at the end of October 2024, and we had been trying for a few months to get pregnant, but this was like the first time we were like really serious about like making this happen. And I found out I was pregnant later that day. Oh my gosh, I am not using my microphone. I just realized. I'm gonna go grab my mic. I hope the audio before this is okay enough. Dang it. I'll be right back.
Whew, and there, that should help. Goodness. Okay, where was I? My first pregnancy loss. I need to breathe for a sec. My first pregnancy loss, I lost the baby on the same day I found out. And it's still so real, and it was still so hard that I went through this. It was early on in the pregnancy, but I still feel like what I went through is so real, and that baby is mine. And I know a lot of people have different views, different opinions, but please just give space for what I've gone through. Like, this was my own experience, and I felt connected to that child, and I was devastated to lose that baby. So after a couple of months, I was shocked to find out I was pregnant again. I didn't think it would be that easy. Oh my goodness. We were both shocked. My husband and I were both shocked about this happening. There's already a faint line. Mm-hmm. It's getting darker. I kind of can't believe that. Oh my
gosh. Like, is it real?
But we were so excited. I actually got like a little baby outfit, like a onesie, and like made a little sign that said 2025, the year we become mom and dad, and set it out to show my husband the pregnancy test. Like, he was there with me when I took the first test when we found out we were pregnant with this baby. But I was still in denial because the line was faint and I was like, "Oh, I was still just traumatized from my last experience that I was going to lose this baby again." And so I took another test and it was clear lines and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is real." And that was the first time like I soaked in and I allowed myself to get excited because I was still like afraid of getting excited. But I knew I wanted something to remember this baby by. I wanted to have that clothing or this I don't know. I wanted to have something for the baby because I didn't have that in the first loss and it was hard. So, yeah, I still hold on to that and I believe that we still became mom and dad in that year, 2025. But it did not look the way we wanted it to. Anyways, to my ectopic pregnancy story. Oh, it was about 2 weeks after we found out. I was feeling so much pain. Like right here on my right hip. I was feeling so much pain. And I didn't realize that this pain was not normal because I'd never gotten very far in a pregnancy. I didn't know what to expect. And I had dealt with pain in this hip before. I've dealt with it for years. And so I wasn't quite sure if that's just what was going on. And I asked my doctor if I should be concerned with the pain. And I was trying to be very hopeful, like maybe it's okay. And she was like, it could possibly be ligament pain that I was feeling. And I was like, okay, possibly. So I was like holding on to that hope, but also confused because I wasn't very far along in my pregnancy. Like I believed I was about 5 weeks at this time. So I was like, okay, I'm okay. And we had done tests of my HCG count and it had been going up. And so my doctor was like, okay, we're good. Like, this is awesome. Because, and that was a relief to hear because with my first loss, that same day when I lost the baby, I had my blood drawn and I was pretty sure I had lost it because I had bled so much that day and had cramping and I was so concerned. And the HCG count was 4, which is just enough to be like, you're not pregnant anymore. Like it's just low enough that it's basically like there's nothing there. And that was hard. So to hear that the HCG count was like higher than it had ever been and it was doubling within a couple of days, like it's crazy how much that hormone just like increases so fast at the beginning of the pregnancy. I was hopeful that things were going to work out, but the pain just kept happening. I would take some Tylenol because that's all you can take while you're pregnant, and it was manageable at first. So this was like Friday, Saturday that the pain was starting. And then it was a couple of days later, like Monday, my husband had the day off and he was here with me the whole day, which was nice. But I was feeling so much pain and I was struggling. I was hoping that everything was okay, but I was like, I just got to take it easy. But it was kind of progressing. It felt like really, really bad cramps, but specifically right here. It wasn't like cramps everywhere. Um, and it wasn't like muscle pain. Like my hip pain will be sometimes over here, but it was feeling like right here is where it was. So, yeah. Later that night, we were just chilling, watching a show, and I was laying in bed just trying to rest and I had to get up to go to the bathroom and I was like hunched over. I couldn't even stand up straight to walk to the bathroom. Like I barely made it to the bathroom and I was just like, okay, something's wrong. Like if I'm in that much pain, I cannot even like stand up to walk normally. Like I was getting really nervous. So we called the 24/7 nurse line that we had with our insurance and She was asking me questions about all my symptoms. I had heard of an ectopic pregnancy before. Yeah, I was concerned that that's what was going on, but I did not want to believe it was happening to me. I was like, no way. Like, I hope I'm okay. And so, as she was asking me all the symptoms, I knew they were symptoms of ectopic pregnancy that she was asking me. And I told her, I was like, yeah, one concern is if it is ectopic. And she's like, that is a concern. And she told us we needed to go to the ER, and I did not want to go because I do not like hospitals, I do not like ERs, but I've had plenty of experiences with those. I did not want to go, but I knew I had to for myself and for my baby. So we went, and it was probably about like 11 p.m. Like we were going. I was in so much pain. Like the tiniest of bump on the road as we were driving would cause like just the pain, the cramping. Like I just like feel the shock of this pain all the time. Oh, something I forgot to mention. I was so bloated. Like my stomach was growing so much, and I remember taking a bath, I think that same day, and just staring at my stomach and being like, "What?" Like if I'm 5 or I think I was almost 6 weeks. I'm like, am I having twins? Like I shouldn't be showing right now. Like I was so like what is happening? So that was another thing. We get to the hospital and there's like no one in the ER like waiting room, which was nice, I guess. There were only like a couple people. And I told the person, I was like, I think I may be having a ectopic pregnancy. Like I'm concerned about it. And she asked me all the things. They got me in pretty quick. Ugh. I'm gonna talk a little bit. I'm so sorry if this makes you cringe. Like, you can skip past, maybe I'll put chapters in here. I don't know. You can skip past some of this because I don't want to be like graphic, but I'll have to talk about like getting an IV and stuff like that. I just want to share like a little bit of my story because maybe someone wants to hear that. If you don't, I respect that. I get it. Um, so when they were checking me in, checking my vitals and everything, I was like, she was asking my symptoms, and they were like concerned, like, but they're like, maybe I'm okay. Because I was describing it's like cramping pain. I stand up and I like I could barely stand up. I was like breathing and like the nurse could tell I was in pain, like just from like taking my vitals. And I was just like, you know what? I just realized since you're having abdominal pain, we could like start you on an IV right now. And I was like, or like take your blood and everything. And I was like, she's like, no, I'm serious. Like, we could do it. I was like, okay, let's do it. Like, I think she could tell, like, okay, this is actually moving up a little in our concern level or whatever. And so I I picked up on that. I was like, okay, great. So here we go. So did the IV, hated it, cried. I won't share many details of that, but just like I had to get it. They took my blood and it was pretty quick, like maybe a few minutes or less that we were waiting in the waiting room by the time they took me back. Okay, so we go back and we have a doctor talk to me and she's like, yeah, well, they were going to have me do an ultrasound. That's basically all that they could do since I was pregnant. They can't do like CT scan or any of that sort of stuff. So I feel like it was so long we had to wait. It felt like so long just waiting for the news and everything. But the ultrasound tech came and it probably in terms of ER time wasn't that long. It was probably like an hour or so, but I just like time was going by so slow. So the ultrasound I had to have, well, he did external first, which is basically just like taking the wand, looking around, and he couldn't see anything. And he's like, yeah, I can't see the uterus, so we're gonna have to do internal. I'm sorry. I'm like, ugh. And at this point, they let me pee. I just realized they had to like let me hold my pee until then. And I had to pee so bad. So that happened. And they had to do the internal wand. It was so painful. Oh my gosh. I was like, I couldn't even focus or like I was just in so much pain just laying there and just trying to hold still. And the ultrasound tech, I had asked him like, will we be able to see the baby? Or and he's like, well, if if we see anything, I'll let you know. And so I'm laying here in the bed, like the screen was right here, like he rolled it in, so I couldn't see the screen at all. And that was kind of hard. I wish I could have seen what was going on, but I guess there's probably some just privacy of like the doctor has to be the one telling you. They don't want you to see it on the ultrasound or something. I don't know. So during the ultrasound, he was very quiet. He didn't say anything. And my husband said he could see his face. He didn't tell me this till later, but he could see his face as like he was like making like ooh, like you could tell his reaction was like this is not good. And I couldn't even focus on that. I was just like in so much pain. They did like we heard some like blood flow for a minute and I thought I was like, "Oh, is that the heartbeat?" He's like, "I'll tell you if we hear the heartbeat. We probably won't cuz it's so early." But he's like, "So that's just listening to your blood flow like between the ovaries, I think." And so I was like, "Oh man, so it's not the baby, it's just the ovaries or my own blood." Um and I just knew at that point that something was wrong. And I didn't want to believe it. But I was like, okay, something is wrong. Um, but they wouldn't tell us until the doctor came in, and it felt like a while. Um, we had to wait, but I guess it wasn't very long. Just time was going by so slow, so I don't even know. Um, but the doctor came in, and at the same time, another nurse was coming in. Another nurse was like grabbing stuff. Like I was feeling like okay, like they were not stalling and waiting. Like the doctor was coming next to my bedside to tell me the news, and a nurse was here taking blood from my IV at the same time. And I'm like, what? And she told me, like, okay, we can see it is an ectopic pregnancy. And I just immediately was like, no. I like, that's all I said. I was like, no. And I just started crying. And I think that's the hardest memory out of all of this. It's just like hearing the news was just really hard. And the person taking my blood was like, you could tell she felt bad. She's like, I'm gonna get out of your way soon so you can like hold her hand. She said that to my husband, and I'm just crying. And they gave us a moment after they did all of that as they went out, and um, we're getting things set in order. They had to call the OB that was on call, the OBGYN, to come and talk to me and decide what to do. So we were waiting for that, and by this time, it's probably like 1 or 2 a.m., probably closer to 2 a.m. by the time that we found out. So this is all happening in the middle of the night. My husband and I just cried and sat there for a minute. And he was telling me how excited he was. I was so excited, and it was just heartbreaking to think that it was gone. The baby was gone. Except in this case, the baby could still be alive. They told me that on the ultrasound they saw that the gestational sac was outside of my uterus. Um, they couldn't tell if it was in the fallopian tube because the fallopian tube is so tiny. So you got your ovaries, the fallopian tube goes and connects the ovary to the uterus. And the fallopian tube you can't really see on an ultrasound, but it was like around the same spot that the fallopian tube would be. So they were thinking that's what was happening. But they could see fluid in my abdomen. And so they were like, we're pretty sure it's already ruptured. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm going to back up. If you don't know, an ectopic pregnancy is when the baby grows outside of the uterus. So after the egg is fertilized, it doesn't make it all the way through the fallopian tube to the uterus. In some cases, it can actually go outside of the uterus and not be in the fallopian tube, which is very interesting. But in my case, it was in the fallopian tube, and because my tube ruptured. So basically, if the baby gets stuck in between the fallopian tube, it doesn't make it, and it continues to grow, that fallopian tube is so small that it will rupture, and the internal bleeding and everything can cause maternal death. So it was actually very scary to hear that and know, like, now I'm concerned for my own life. I was so focused on the baby's life, and now I'm concerned about mine. And that was a shock. Anyways, where was I in my story? yeah, so we had time to just sit and until the doctor came. When he came, he was so nice. Like, I lucked out in a really amazing OB, and a lot of the nurses and people like coming out in and out were like, "Oh, you lucked out. He's amazing." And I was like, "Thank you." Like, hearing that from an ER nurse like means a lot, right? Because they see it all. Yeah, he was very kind, very patient, considerate. He explained everything that's going on, and he took the time to be like, these are your options, and take our choice into consideration. And that meant a lot because I've heard a lot of stories, just so sad. I've heard stories from other people, from just other YouTube videos I've watched of people's voice not being in choice, not being accounted for. Like, there's basically a couple of options. When you have ectopic pregnancy, when you're diagnosed with it, you can have, I believe it's called methotrexate, is a shot, which I think is like a chemo shot, is what they said, like the same sort of like chemo drug. And it stops the cells in the baby from growing. And in some cases, it can cause like the body to just like basically release and get rid of the gestational sac on its own, kind of like having a period or a miscarriage. So some people will choose that option, but once it's ruptured, they highly recommend having emergency surgery to remove the sac and whatever else, like the bleeding and everything. And he just said that usually at this point, if we are worried about ruptured, if it's ruptured, we will do surgery. But like, he let us choose, and that meant a lot. But we were both on board, like, yeah, if that's what we need to do to like save my life, let's do it. So we did. And it was pretty quick. After that moment, he went out in the hallway, called someone up in the OR, the operating room, and it was within an hour that they got me up and ready. The anesthesiologist talked to me, and it was pretty fast, after that moment. But I'm really glad that the doctor took time to talk to us and explain what was going on instead of rushing me, even though I was already ruptured. Yeah. Now, this is a personal part of my story. I'm going to bring a little bit of my faith into this because it's part of what I've gone through. But I respect if you believe differently. That's totally fine. This is just what I've gone through. In that moment, when they had wheeled my bed right outside the operating room and were waiting for everything to be ready to wheel me in, I just laid there because it was the first time I had been by myself and just sitting like, oh my gosh, like, this is scary. And I said a prayer just silently in my heart, just asking God to protect me and help me live through this. I was just praying that things would go well, that the doctors would know what to do. And I also, like, in my religion, we believe that, like, you can kind of communicate with God. So essentially, you can put your heart and your mind in a space to receive spiritual impressions, um, from what God wants to communicate to you. And in that time, I felt like just this voice, this message come to my mind, like immediately as I like asked God. I was like, is there anything you want to tell me in this moment? Which is actually really powerful. I'm glad I asked that, and was just open to what he had to say. And immediately the first thing he said was, I have your baby. I'll keep your baby safe. So, yeah. Um, from that experience, I know, like, for myself, that that baby was real. And the baby before that was real. Is real. And I believe that in the next life, I'll be able to see them again. And that's a big relief. Still awful that I had to go through this, and sad that this happened, and I miss those babies so much. I knew I was gonna cry. So yeah, it's okay to cry. Need a moment for a sec. So, they wheeled me into the operating room and raised my bed, and I couldn't even move from the bed to the operating table. Like, there were at least 2 or 3 people like helping shift my body over as I'm like in so much pain. And they could see visibly like I was so bloated, but it was actually all of the blood in my stomach from rupturing. I had, after the surgery, they were able to tell my husband that it was 600 milliliters of blood that they collected that was just floating around in my abdomen. After I woke up, I was just relieved. Like, the pain was immediately gone. I remember just being like, wow, the pain is gone, and just being like, oh my gosh, I'm alive. And I was glad I was in a place mentally where I was grateful to be alive. Yeah, yeah, it was still just a shock. After I had come to consciousness after anesthesia, they wheeled me to the maternal and like women's clinic or the women's wing, and I remember my heart just sinking after I heard a baby cry in that hallway, like a newborn cry, and just being like, I don't want to hear that right now. Like, I was so sad. It hadn't quite hit me as much, but it was still just like I knew that that baby was gone. And there's no way that you can keep a baby. Ectopic pregnancy is fatal. Like the mother will die, and so like the only option is to remove the baby, unfortunately, to save the mother's life. I put my glasses back on. So, after the surgery, my husband was in that room, and it was nice to see him again, and he was relieved, and he had already talked to the doctor, and they checked on me. They kept me for a few hours. It was probably like 7 or 8 a.m. by the time I was like out of surgery, and it was probably like maybe it was more like 6. I don't know. It was about 3 a.m. that they got me into the operating room, and the surgery was about 3 to 4 hours. My husband was so exhausted because he hadn't slept that whole entire night. I guess I got a little bit of a nap. You can count it. But yeah, they discharged us around noon, and we drove home and just focused on recovering and taking care of myself. I took things really easy. Um, I wasn't in a lot of pain in the first day or two because I think the anesthesia was still in my system. But still, the pain that I felt after the surgery was nothing compared to the pain I felt before with the ectopic pregnancy. It was like, sure, some soreness around the incisions because they had to do a laparoscopic surgery. So I have a scar here and here, somewhere around here, and then one in my belly button. So they did like 3 incisions. They're small incisions so that they could like get the camera in and all of the everything they needed to remove everything, which is actually fascinating they can do that. So I just had to take it easy. They say 2 weeks for the recovery, but honestly, it was way longer than that in my personal experience for the pain to like be gone. And it took a while until they finally said, like, after I was like calling the doctor and the nurse, they're like, yeah, for things to go back to normal or whatever, it takes about 6 months. I'm like, great. Now you tell me. Good to know. So it was a long year this last year of just focusing on my health and recovering. And then I had to deal with a whole bunch of bacterial vaginal infections. If that's TMI, sorry. Just like my whole body was just thrown off. And I think it also amplified just things I'd been going through and realized other pain that I had been dealing with for years that, like, okay, I'm going to address this and finally see a doctor and see what I can do. And I'm actually currently recovering from another surgery I had in December. It's January 14th right now. So I'm about 4 weeks since that surgery I've had. And by far the easiest surgery I've gone through. Gone through about 6 in my life. So this um, this surgery was to remove some nerve endings for some nerve pain I was dealing with. So it's just been a long year of focusing on my health. But in that, I've also been in a limbo state of like what to do with my life. um, I used to be a teacher, and with everything I've been going through, there's no way I could like feel like I could be teaching right now. And I'm glad I took the time and was able to focus on my health and my own self, which leads to plants and groove and bloom and houseplants. In June, end of June is when I got the idea to do this, and I did it, and I'm so glad I started this channel. Um, this has actually been really healing for me to focus on passion that I have in plants and growth with that. I feel like I found myself again because after the ectopic pregnancy, the surgery and everything, I felt like I was so sad. Obviously, I was grieving, but I was like, will I ever be happy again? Will my body ever be okay again? And I was mad at my body. That was the hardest thing, just feeling like angry that like my body failed this baby and myself. So, there's that. So it was so refreshing to finally be like, eventually after a few months, like give myself permission to focus on something that brings me joy and have a creative outlet. So I did. I created this channel and focused a lot on growing my plants. And it's been like poetic in a way to see my plants grow and also reflect on my own personal growth. I would not wish this upon anybody. I did not wish it upon myself to go through this. It was awful, the worst thing I've ever had happen to me. But it's a fact that it happened, and I had to change and grow from it. And I've definitely grown. I'm proud of myself for taking the time I needed to grieve, to take the time I needed to just feel and do what I needed to heal. And that's different for everyone. But for me, I just needed to focus on myself, and I did. And part of that was these plants, just pouring my heart into something. And I'm so glad I did. Yeah. Something that's been special is forget me not flowers. I don't know why I'm still holding this. Forget me not flowers have been a part of my, have been a symbol for me. Forget me not flowers have been a symbol for this loss that I've experienced. So, in May, it was actually Memorial Day. We planted some forget me not seeds in on our patio. And I actually want to include kind of a montage and pictures every now and then and videos of how my flowers have grown throughout the year. I'm going to include just a little bit of the journey of how those flowers grew, and it made me so happy to see them bloom. It meant a lot to me. And they actually happened to bloom multiple times, but they were blooming at the time that my baby, this second baby, would have been due. They were blooming around that time, and that was so special. Look, the first forget-me-not flowers are blooming. September 11th would have been the due date for this baby that I had the ectopic pregnancy. And that day, I heard of this flower farm in Utah that was having a remembrance night for other parents who have experienced pregnancy loss or baby loss. And I was like, whoa. I just felt like there was no coincidence that that was happening on the due date of my baby. And so we went and we were able to pick our own bouquets Like, you're able to pick one free bouquet, and then we paid for another one. So my husband and I both made a bouquet of flowers to remember these babies and to just feel the feelings and honor what we've gone through. I actually worked to get an ultrasound picture of that day that we had the emergency surgery. I never got to see the ultrasound. And so I asked and we worked hard to get it. My husband was so nice and went and got it for me because I was feeling like, I don't want to go back to the hospital. Like, there's still some like PTSD, some trauma there. So he went and got the picture and I printed it out, and that meant a lot to like have that. And I wrapped it with the outfit that I had for the baby, tied it with the bow that I had for the when I had given that to my husband, or like showed it. And so we like took pictures with all of the things, the symbols and items that were memorable to us, and it was so special. Yeah. So I guess I want to answer some questions. I don't know what exactly. If you have more questions or want to share your own story, feel free to open the comment section and go there. And my heart wants to connect with those who are going through what I've gone through. So this is a safe space. I want to say, like, if you're going through this, anything similar, if you're losing a baby, have lost a baby, I am so sorry. My heart goes out to you. Like, that breaks my heart. I'm so sorry. It's not fair. I don't know why this happens. It's awful. But you are not alone in what you're feeling. You're not alone in this. And that's my main purpose of making this video, is one, for my own healing, to voice what I've gone through, but two, to connect with those who are going through this, because it is so isolating. It's not talked about. Miscarriage and all of these things is rarely talked about. It's starting to be more now, but it's hard to hear and feel like you're going through this, and then it's hard to not hear the stories and feel like you're alone. So I'm telling you, you're not. Your story may be different, but there's space for your story. Yeah. Just do what you need to take care of yourself during this time. For those who are watching this and have had a loved one close to them go through an ectopic pregnancy, maybe you're wondering, what can I do? Or maybe someone going through a miscarriage. What can I do to support them? And I would say, first, just tell them, I'm here for you. Yeah, I feel like that's the first thing to just start. And also know for yourself that grief looks different for everyone. So don't put an expectation on someone of what that should look like, a timeline of like, oh, you should be over this by now. I'm going to pause and make sure it's still recording. Oh, good. Holy cow, 42 minutes? Are you kidding me? I've been sitting on this couch for 42 minutes filming this? That's crazy. I had no idea. I'm gonna like clip some parts out, but I'm sorry if this is so long, but it's needed. So I'll talk as much as we need to here. Yeah, I was saying that just like know that their grief may look different than yours. And or what you expect grief to look like. Where's my water? Oh yeah, I hid it behind here. Here, take a drink. I don't know why I'm putting it there, but I feel like it'll tip over if it's not like sitting behind the pillow. Okay, I was saying that if you are wondering how you can support someone going through a pregnancy loss, first of all, just say you're here for them and then give them space to grieve however they need to. And ask them, like, what can I do for you? A lot of times, they may not know. There are a lot of times it's like, I know I need help, but I don't know what I need help with. Like, I'm just can't even think outside what I'm experiencing. And so maybe they need to ask my partner, like ask the partner, right? They could have asked my husband. And I think that's a lesson to learn is to accept help from others. Like if you need help, someone come do your dishes or bring you a meal, accept it. There's no shame in that. A lot of people want to serve and help you. But anyways, if you are one wanting to serve, offer, can I bring you a meal? Can I come help clean for you? Can I just sit? Like I will sit there. You don't have to talk. You can cry. I'll just be here. We can watch a show together or we can talk. And that meant a lot when a friend showed up and we just talked. And I felt like, wow, I'm having some connection with a human again. Even though my husband was here all the time, it was just different to talk about my story and to someone else who hadn't experienced it with me. And I'm so glad my husband was supportive through all of this. We really chose to lean on each other and help each other. I really don't know what else to say. I'm just feel like I've been reflecting on how much I've grown in this past year. And I'm grateful for this channel and this space to be able to share my growth and my journey and my plans. If you found this channel, if you're new here, welcome. I'm glad you watched this video and I'm here with you. My heart goes out to you. And if you're interested in plants, want to laugh every now and then because I'm kind of a dork, my silly self, when I'm with my plants, and it's really fun to share that. So, if that's something you're interested, feel free to subscribe. If you're not here for that, don't subscribe. Like, seriously, only subscribe if you're serious. If you're here for me, like my personality and the plants, welcome. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. I also want to mention that this is a necklace. I'll show up close. Of it's a dried real forget-me-not bloom, a flower. And I got this on Mother's Day. It was very special to just feel like I am a mom. Sorry if I touched the mic there. I am a mom. My babies are not here, but they're real and I miss them. This is my forget-me-not necklace. Oh, there's kind of a glaring. There we go. You can kind of see. So, sending love and comfort and peace your way. Take care of yourself.